Alrighty. So this is a new little show that I'm going to be starting on my Twitch channel. It's called Last Week's News. Welcome to the show. Basically, it's going to be taking maybe a dozen or so, maybe 10 stories from the past week, looking through it all and commenting on it, and yeah, having some discussion with people in the chat if they choose to. Obviously, the first story of the day comes from Australia, and it says UberEATS driver's 1-star review for refusing to deliver crystal meth. An UberEATS driver has accused the food delivery giant of failing to support her after she refused to deliver a suspicious package in Sydney's eastern suburbs. Of course, it would be Sydney, which police later discovered contained crystal meth. That's insane. Let's add some background noise here. The driver, Jess, who asked for her surname to be withheld for personal safety reasons, said the company had failed to remove the drug dealer from the app or take down the 1-star review he gave her, and said at one point she was even scolded by a customer support officer for not delivering the package. Literally a multinational company forcing someone to be a drug dealer, or a mule, I guess you can call that. It's a fairly, well, it's in a toothpaste container. I'm not going to be doing this anymore because I'm so disgusted how they've treated me, she said of her decision to abandon the platform. But on principle, I'm pushing it because they could do this to other drivers. Jess works full-time, but last month decided to pursue some additional income as an UberEATS driver to cope with the rising cost of living. It's very common for people to take on food delivery as like a second job, as just a bit more income on the side. She was working her second shift in the evening of April 22nd when she accepted a job to deliver a package via the platform's parcel delivery arm, Uber Connect. I said to the person receiving it, would you mind telling me what you ordered? And she said toothpaste. Let me just mute this. One sec. There we go. Toothpaste. Yeah, that's suspicious. I wouldn't really take their word on that. Toothpaste is a very odd thing to want to transport anyways. The pickup address was a restaurant on Botany Road in Mascot. I walked out of the restaurant and the guy is standing there and said, "You're Jess, here's the parcel," and walked off, she recalled. She immediately thought the package in a plastic bag fastened with a black zip tag seemed suspect. Probably means suspicious. I said to the person receiving it, "Would you mind telling me what you ordered?" And she said toothpaste, Jess said. In order to maintain the reliability of our rating system, we are unable to provide or adjust ratings for individual trips, says an Uber spokesperson. That should be totally expunged from her delivery history. But anyways. I went, who pays $16 for toothpaste to be delivered? This is totally dodgy. I would have thought the same thing. She cancelled the job and drove to Mascot Police Station while the drug dealer phoned her and sprayed her with verbal abuse. That's awful. A New South Wales police spokeswoman said officers opened the package and located a toothpaste tube containing what is believed to be 2 grams of methamphetamine, which was seized by police. As inquiries continue, anyone who may have information about this incident or the supply of prohibited drugs is urged to contact Mascot Police Station or Crime Stoppers, the spokeswoman said. Jess said she attempted to phone UberEATS directly to no avail and was forced to raise the matter repeatedly via an online form, which saw her bombarded with generic replies. That's terrible. On Sunday, she said after a week On Sunday, she said after a week the company had not returned her calls, had not removed the drug dealer from the app, had refused to reimburse her the $16 she'd been paid for the trip, or to take down the 1-star review the drug dealer had given her. Absolute clown world. We will look further into this to determine if the rider will continue to have access to Uber, and UberEATS staffer advised Jess in correspondence seen by this masthead. In order to maintain the reliability of our rating system, we are unable to provide or adjust ratings for individual trips. That's very poor of them. We also understand you wish to be compensated for your lost hours. In general, we compensate partners for trips that they have completed on the Uber app. Jess said she was told that the police could not take further action without the assistance of UberEATS in identifying the customer. 5 hours after this masthead put questions to Uber on Sunday, a company employee contacted Jess to let her know that appropriate internal actions had been taken against the drug dealer. They apologised for the length of time it had taken to address the situation. Jess was advised the 1-star rating would be removed and she would be refunded the full fair amount. An Uber spokeswoman told this masthead any illegal activity while using the Uber app was unacceptable and could result in immediate loss of access to the Uber app. That should just be normal anyways. When sending goods, riders must agree immediately prior to requesting they will not send prohibited or illegal items, including drugs. I mean, that's kind of expecting too much from people, really. Our dedicated law enforcement response team, which includes former Australian police officers, is also available to assist police in their investigation into any such matter. Jess took to social media to expose her experience, saying it was not about the money because she was fortunate to have full-time work, but she was pursuing the matter on principle for the sake of others who relied on the app as their primary source of income. Uber is not creating a safe work environment, she said. They're protecting people who are paying over their drivers. Now that was a pretty interesting story. I would have thought that they would be all over, like, stopping the drug dealer from using the app and giving that information to police, but I guess they're a bit reserved with the privacy of some of their customers. Second story, again from Australia. Woman survives on wine during 5 days stranded in Australian bush. What a story header. Hello, thank you for stopping by the stream. Hope your day's good. I guess this really gives a new meaning to the phrase party animal. Get it? Because she was drinking in the bush. A 48-year-old woman survived 5 days stranded in the bush in Australia by eating sweets and drinking a single bottle of wine. Lillian Ip set off on what was meant to be a short trip on Sunday, travelling through dense bush in Victoria State. But she hit a dead end after taking a wrong turn and her vehicle became stuck in the mud. Miss Ip, who doesn't drink, only had a bottle of wine in the car as she was planning to give it as a present. Surviving off alcohol. I mean, there's your first mistake there. If you're planning on, having a short trip over the weekend, you should have some water or some food with you to have. Unless the people that she was meeting had all the food already planned. After 5 nights stranded, she was discovered by emergency services on Friday as they flew overhead as part of a search. The first thing coming in mind, I was thinking water and a cigarette, Miss Ip told 9 News Australia. Thank God the policewoman had a cigarette. It's an odd request for the first thing to have. As she lost hope of being found alive, she wrote a letter to her family saying she loved them. Ms. Ip, was found around 60 kilometres or 37 miles away from the nearest town, and due to health issues, she was unable to walk far, so stayed with her car, Victoria Police said. She only had a few snacks and sweets to eat and no water. The only liquid Lillian, who doesn't drink, had with her was a bottle of wine, and she told she had bought as a gift for her mother, so that got her through, Wodonga Police Station Sergeant Martin Torpy said. She used great common sense to stay with her car and not wander off into bushland, which assisted in police being able to find her. Ms. Ip was taken to hospital and was treated for dehydration, but has since returned home to Melbourne. Well, at least the story's got a nice ending to it, despite quite a harrowing, almost week. This one's coming out of the United States, Nashville, Tennessee. Hilton hotel manager arrested for waking up guests by sucking on their toes. What kind of hotel service is this? A Hilton hotel manager was arrested and charged Friday for entering a guest room and sucking on the customer's toes. David Neal, 52, was charged with aggravated burglary and assault for entering a male guest room and sucking on his toes on Thursday, March 30th. Nashville police were dispatched shortly after 5 a.m. to 121 4th Avenue South, where a Hilton hotel resides, a spokesperson for the city's police department said. Taking foot fetishes to a whole new level. I mean, if it was a hotel dedicated to that sort of thing, I would understand, but that's so strange. While investigating a complaint, officers discovered that Neil, working as a night manager at the time, made a key card and entered the guest's room. The guest then woke up to find Neil sucking on his toes, which he immediately confronted. You know, quite understandably. I'd probably start fighting him if that happened to me. The guest recognised Neil because the day before he came into the room with another employee to fix an issue with the television, the spokesperson informed. Neil claimed that he entered the room because he smelled smoke and was checking on the victim. However, the night manager did not report this issue to security. Furthermore, no other resident reported smelling smoke. So he made it up. Not only is he caught doing something weird, but he lied. When officers asked where the room key was, Neil replied that he threw it away, the spokesperson said. The room key was never recovered. Nashville Police Central Precinct detectives led the investigation and issued warrants against Neil. He was arrested at his Lebanon, Tennessee residence. Neil is currently in jail to be released on a $27,000 bond. And that's probably like 42,000 Australian dollars. So that's quite a large amount just to suck on some toes. This one coming out of the United Kingdom after the coronation, of course a very big story. Huge phallic likeness mowed into lawn at King Charles's coronation event site. As far as pranks go, this one will be hard to beat. Pranksters have mowed a giant symmetrical erect penis into the lawn of a venue where a major coronation celebration is set to occur. You can see right there. Some pranksters mowed a giant penis into the lawn of the Royal Crescent leading up to King Charles' coronation this weekend. According to multiple outlets, the 30-foot phallus appeared overnight on the lawn of Royal Crescent in Bath, England, and was visible Thursday. The site is scheduled to host a Georgian-themed grand coronation party on Saturday in honour of King Charles III's coronation. Celebrate the 300th anniversary of the Georgian era, a flyer for the Royal Crescent event reads. Decorate your own regal crown, watch demonstrations on royal fashion, and visit the Georgian cook cooking up delicious recipes in the kitchen. While many are likely tickled by the cocky prank, It's sure to rub others the wrong way. Jeez, imagine being paid to write that. The Royal Crescent is a tourist destination in Bath, known for its perfect lawn that dates back to the 18th century and was featured in the Netflix drama Bridgerton. The Bath and North East Somerset Council, which is responsible for the lawn, have not addressed the issue publicly so far. Yeah, the coronation was quite a spectacle to watch. Lots of different jewels and that sort of thing that they, especially the gold little jacket, I guess you could call it, sort of thing that he had. Very prim and proper. Next story from BBC News: climate change, life in ocean twilight zone at risk from warming. Climate change could drastically reduce life in the deepest parts of our oceans that are reached by sunlight, scientists warn. Global warming could curtail life in the so-called twilight zone by as much as 40% by the end of the century, according to new research. The twilight zone lies between 200 metres and 1,000 metres. It teems with life but was home to fewer organisms during warmer periods of Earth's history, researchers found. So obviously if it warms up, then there'll be less life down there and probably like a dying off event. In research led by the University of Exeter, scientists looked at two warm periods in the Earth's past, about 50 million years ago and 15 million years ago, examining records from preserved microscopic shells. They found far fewer organisms lived in the zone during these periods because bacteria degraded food more quickly, meaning less of it reached the twilight zone from the surface. The rich variety of twilight zone life evolved in the last few million years when ocean waters had cooled enough to act rather like a fridge, preserving the food for longer and improving conditions allowing life to thrive, said Catherine Crichton from the University of Exeter, who was the lead author of the study. The twilight zone, also known as the dysphotic zone, is a vital habitat for marine life. It is too dim for photosynthesis to occur, but home to more fish than the rest of the ocean put together, as well as a wide range of life including microbes, plankton, and jellies, according to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. It also serves a key environmental function as a carbon sink, drawing planet-heating gas out of our atmosphere. The scientists simulated what might be happening in the twilight zone now and what could happen in the future due to climate change. They said their findings suggested that significant changes may already be underway. Our study is a first step to finding out how vulnerable this ocean habitat may be to climate change, said Dr. Crichton. Hey Will, how's it going? Unless we rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, this could lead to the disappearance of or extinction of much twilight zone life within 150 years, with effects spanning millennia thereafter. This paper was published in the journal Nature Communications. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. Working from home again, I guess. Yeah, that's all good. This one's coming out of the United States, I guess. World Health Organization says COVID remains a global emergency, but pandemic could near its end in 2023. It's another one of these, it could be over soon, but it's also not, so I think everyone's just kind of sick and tired of hearing about COVID, but yeah, declaring it to be a pandemic, declaring that over, I guess, or close to being over, that's makes big news all the time. The World Health Organization on Monday said COVID-19 remains a global health emergency as the world enters the 4th year of the pandemic. But World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom, I don't know how to say his surname there, said he was hopeful that the world will transition out of emergency phase of the pandemic this year. Very awkwardly written so far. We remain hopeful that in the coming year the world will transition to a new phase in which we reduce hospitalizations and deaths to the lowest possible level, and health systems are able to manage COVID-19 in an integrated and sustainable way, Tedros said in a statement. The WHO's Emergency Committee met on Friday and advised Tedros that the virus, which was initially discovered in Wuhan, China in late 2019, remains a public health emergency of international concern, the UN agency's highest alert level. The WHO first declared an emergency in January 2020, and we all remember how shocking that was. The WHO decision comes after the US earlier this month extended its public health emergency until April. In his statement Monday, Tedros said the world is in far better place than it was a year ago when the Omicron variant first swept the globe. The WHO has estimated that at least 90% of the world's population has some level of immunity to COVID due to vaccination or infection. Weekly COVID deaths have dropped 70% since the peak of the first massive Omicron wave in February of last year, according to WHO data. But deaths started increasing again in December as China, the world's most populous country, has faced its largest wave of infection yet. I'm not sure we can really decide which country out of China and India is the most populous or has the highest population, because it'd be pretty hard to track and document all the births that are happening on a daily basis. Tedros on Friday said surveillance and genetic sequencing has declined dramatically, making it difficult to track COVID variants and detect new ones. Too few older people are fully vaccinated and many people do not have access to antivirals, he said. Do not underestimate this virus, Tedros told reporters at a press conference in Geneva on Friday. It has and will continue to surprise us, and it will continue to kill us unless we do more to get health tools to people that need them and to comprehensively tackle misinformation. Which in itself, saying that you're tackling misinformation can kind of set alarm bells off to some people. Last month, the WHO chief said the end of the emergency phase of the pandemic is closer than ever before. In the fall, Tedros said the end of the pandemic was in sight. We have never been in a better position to end the pandemic. We are not there yet, but the end is in sight, Tedros told reporters in Geneva last September. Another story from the United States. From stakeouts to warrants, how federal investigators found more than 100 children cleaning slaughterhouses. Literally child slave labor. 85 years ago, the United States outlawed child abuse in sweatshop labor, a scourge that Franklin Roosevelt called this ancient atrocity. So it was a shock in 2022 to learn that an American company owned by a Wall Street firm sent children as young as 13 to work in slaughterhouses. The disgrace was more disturbing because the company PSSI is vital to national food safety, and its owner, Blackstone, claims to be a model of management. Both companies say they had no idea they employed children in 8 states, but it was obvious to teachers in Grand Island, Nebraska, who noticed acid burns on a child. I mean, wouldn't you have a human resources department that would have all the information, and they would probably, get ID from these people? In our story, you will see only 2 photos of children working in a slaughterhouse. Because of privacy, 2 with obscured faces are all the US Department of Labor would give us. but 2 may be enough. Their hard hats read PSSI for Packers Sanitation Services Incorporated, the nation's leading slaughterhouse cleaning service with 15,000 workers in 432 plants, taking in more than $1 billion a year. Not, it seemed, a likely abuser of children. Shannon Rebolido says it seemed possible, but not necessarily likely. And if it were possible, maybe it was. Someone had slipped through the cracks. I could see that, but still, you'd have to have people employed by the company that would, be like the HR sort of a compartment there. Shannon Rebolido is a 17-year-old Labor Department investigator who was skeptical, but she went to Grand Island, Nebraska last summer after a middle school told police about acid burns on the hand and knee of a 14-year-old girl. The student explained that she worked nights in the slaughterhouse on the edge of town. Scott Pelly says, "What did the educators at Walnut Middle School tell you?" It seems to be known within the community that minors are either are or were working overnight shifts. They told us about children that were falling asleep in class, that had burns, chemical burns. They were concerned for the safety of the kids. They were concerned that they weren't able to stay awake and do their job, which is learning in school, which is, where they should be. Because they've been up all night. Right. Up all night at the JBS slaughterhouse, an immense plant that produces 5% of the beef in America. JBS can butcher 6,000 cows a day here, but each night the plant was turned over to PSSI for cleaning from 11 to 7 a.m. Shannon Rebolido staked out the parking lot as JBS left and PSSI came in. Let's get some water. It's an interesting story. And you really noted the difference in appearance of these workers that were coming to work this late night shift. What do you mean? They were little. They looked young. She believed children were washing bloody floors and razor-sharp machines with scalding water and powerful chemicals. So Rebolido returned with a team and a search warrant. She says they found 9 children at work, a revelation that triggered a national audit of PSSI. Understandably. It's a long story. Alright, we'll go to the next story. It's probably just an interview. Surgeon General declares loneliness epidemic, saying it poses risks as deadly as smoking. Widespread loneliness in the US poses health risks as deadly as smoking a dozen cigarettes daily, costing the health industry billions of dollars annually. The US Surgeon General said Tuesday in declaring the latest public health epidemic. About half of US adults say they've experienced loneliness, Dr. Vivek Murthy said in an 81-page report from his office. We now know that loneliness is a common feeling that many people experience. It's like hunger or thirst. It's a feeling the body sends us when something we need for survival is missing, Murthy told the Associated Press in an interview. Millions of people in America are struggling in the shadows, and that's not right. That's why I issued this advisory to pull back the curtain on a struggle that too many people are experiencing. The declaration is intended to raise awareness about loneliness, but won't unlock federal funding or programming devoted to combating this issue. The issue. Research shows that Americans who have become less engaged with worship houses, community organizations, and even their own family in recent decades have steadily reported an increase in feelings of loneliness, and the number of single households has also doubled over the last 60 years, which is a very concerning trend. But the crisis deeply worsened when COVID-19 spread, prompting schools and workplaces to shut their doors and sending millions of Americans to isolate at home away from relatives or friends. People culled their friend group during the coronavirus pandemic and reduced time spent with those friends, the Surgeon General's report finds. Americans spent about 20 minutes a day in person with friends in 2020, down from 60 minutes daily nearly 2 decades earlier. And of course, technology plays a big role in that sort of thing. The loneliness epidemic is hitting young people ages 15 to 24 especially hard. The age group reported a 70% drop in time spent with friends during the same period. Loneliness increases the risk of premature death by nearly 30%, that's absolutely scary. With the report revealing that those with poor social relationships also had a greater risk of stroke and heart disease. Isolation also elevates a person's likelihood for experiencing depression, anxiety, and dementia. The Surgeon General is calling on workplaces, schools, technology companies, community organisations, parents, and other people to make changes that will boost the country's connectedness. He advises people to join community groups and put down their phones when they're catching up with friends. Employers to think carefully about their remote work policies and health systems to provide training for doctors to recognise the health risks of loneliness. Technology has rapidly exacerbated the loneliness problem, with one study cited in the report finding that people who use social media for 2 hours or more daily were more than twice as likely to report feeling socially isolated than those who are on such apps for less than 30 minutes a day. Murthy said social media is driving the increase in loneliness in particular. His report suggests that technology companies roll out protections for children, especially around their social media behaviour. There's really no substitute for in-person interaction, Murthy said. As we shifted to use technology more and more for our communication, we lost out on a lot of that in-person interaction. How do we design technology that strengthens our relationships as opposed to weaken them? That's a really good question. It's something that I think a lot of the social media apps like Facebook and Instagram, they're particularly bad for making people like doom scroll for like hours on end, but they're not actually interacting with anyone in the real world. Another story from the United States, it looks like. Fast food industry Fast food industry drives workers to homelessness, report finds. When it comes to low-wage jobs, not all industries are created equal. Being employed in the fast food industry is the surest way to end up in poverty as a low-wage earner, a new study finds. A new study conducted in California by the nonprofit group Economic Roundtable has reinforced previous findings that the fast food industry has a larger proportion of workers in poverty than any other. It's a disparity driven by fast food workers' low wages and inability to get full-time hours. The industry has served as a significant driver of homelessness in the Golden State over the past 8 years, pushing up the state's homeless population by 51%, the study found. That's such a shocking increase, wow. Now, fast food workers represent 1 in 17 of homeless people in California, according to the report. We estimate that homelessness would have grown about 1/5 less in California if the fast food wage floor was adequate to ensure that workers have stable housing, the study reads. Low pay and underemployment in the fast food industry aren't only California's problem, Audrey Taylor, a leader with fair pay advocacy group fight for $15, told CBS Money Watch. It's clear that in California and across the country, our wages aren't keeping up with the skyrocketing cost of living, said Taylor, who makes $12 per hour at a Wendy's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Economic Roundtable study in California should be a wake-up call around the country. Not enough work hours for a full week's pay. The federal poverty level for a three-person household, the average American household size, is $24,860, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. As of last year, there were an estimated 3.3 million fast food and counter workers in the US, making an average hourly wage of $13.53, Bureau of Labor Statistics data show. That works out to $28,130 per year, assuming a 40-hour work week, which many fast food workers don't get. Though California has one of the highest minimum wages in the United States at $15.50 an hour, fast food workers there often don't work enough hours in a week to improve their living conditions, the report said. So they're literally just being almost worked to the bone. California frontline fast food workforce get an average of 1,340 hours of paid work per year, the study found. For someone who works year-round, that averages 26 hours a week. By comparison, all other workers in the state work an average of 1,839 hours per year, which is about 500 more. Low pay, high profits. This is the spicy bit. While fast food workers struggle to make ends meet, the companies employing them are doing just fine. McDonald's raked in $1.9 billion with a B in profit during the fourth quarter of 2022, up from the year before, the company's filings show. Meanwhile, Chick-fil-A recorded $18.8 billion with a B in US system sales in 2022, up nearly 13% from the year prior, the Franchise Times reported. However, fast food businesses might not fare so well in the future if they don't begin caring more about their employees, Daniel Flaming, Economic Roundtable's president and one of the study's authors, told CBS Money Watch. This industry is highly profitable, but it will not be sustainable until it stops creating and perpetuating destitution and homelessness among its workers, Flaming said. Statewide, the public is paying the healthcare costs for 31% of frontline fast food workers through Medi-Cal coverage. Oh, like Medical California. Paying for food stamps for 17% of frontline workers and paying a wide range of costs for homeless services and housing for 10,120 homeless individuals from the fast food workforce. At the same time, fast food companies are achieving enormous profits, he said, noting that the 5 largest companies in the business had $12 billion in profits last year and $14.5 billion the year before. This is not equitable for workers or sustainable for society. Yeah, that's only in America, really. And the final story, WA police seize photos from home of journalist who took images of ancient rock art being removed. Eliza Closer says she was stopped by police while photographing the art's removal from Burrup Peninsula and then had images seized from her Karratha home. Another instance of police raiding the houses of journalists. A Western Australian journalist who was taking photos of the removal of ancient rock art from the site of a fertilizer plant says she was repeatedly stopped by police and eventually had the images seized during a raid. The police action comes amid a crackdown on environmental activists in the state. Eliza Closer, a journalist with Ngada Media, captured the removal of the art from Murujuga on the Burrup Peninsula in the Pilbara on Friday morning. She said she was stopped twice by two different police patrols within minutes, the first while taking photos from public land and the second while she was leaving the area on a public road. Closer had been taking photos to accompany a story on the removal of 3 pieces of rock art to make way for a $6 billion urea plant being constructed by Perdaman. I just thought it was ridiculous. It just shocked me a bit how policed it was, the area, and that I was stopped so much just for taking photos. I was within my legal rights. Like, what's the problem? Closer said. I'm a journalist. I'm doing a duty. I've got an audience that's very interested in this. I mean, I can understand that. You wouldn't think that, just covering something that's happening in the area to do with like Indigenous art and all that would be such a controversial thing for police to not want that out in the public. Later that afternoon, Closer was at her home in Karratha when police knocked on the door and said they were executing a warrant. Earlier that day, Closer's housemate, Gerard Mazza, had been arrested in relation to an alleged planned disruption at the Woodside Annual General Meeting. Mazza has been charged with aggravated burglary with intent on a place. Closer said she had no prior knowledge of... Nah, I'm not playing GeoGuessr today. It's just my news show. Closer said she had no prior knowledge of Mazza's alleged planned disruption and has never had any involvement in activism. Closer told police she was a journalist and had already been stopped twice earlier that day by police at Murujuga, where she had been taking photos. But officers spent a significant period of time searching through the photos on a camera she predominantly uses for work, she said, before declaring they would be seizing his memory card. Closer had already downloaded a copy of the photos. That's a good little practice there of backing up your information. WA police contacted Closer and returned her memory card on Tuesday afternoon, 2 hours after questions regarding the raid had been sent. 2 hours after questions regarding the raid had been sent by The Guardian. That's a pretty poorly written sentence. Closer had also been driving Mazza's car at the time she was stopped at Murujuga, but says police did not mention this was the reason she was intercepted. She asked police on Tuesday for a copy of the warrant, but they said it could not be provided because the house had been searched under a WA law which permits such a search when a person has been arrested in relation to a serious offence. The law also states that a thing relevant to an offence can be seized under this search, even if it is not the offence that prompted the search. Closer was not told why police suspected the memory card could be relevant to any offence. Her experience is the latest in a series of interactions involving police in the state that have troubled environmental protesters and activists. Zara Burgess, a lawyer who is representing several people charged with offences relating to their activism, said WA police had increasingly taken a coordinated, targeted and sophisticated response towards protesters, particularly those opposed to redevelopment on the Burrup. She said while the state had not passed laws which banned protesting, and as had occurred in other states such as Victoria and New South Wales, the current police approach was having a similar impact. What it shows is just a reflection of what is a global trend at the moment in terms of criminalising peaceful protests, she said. It's designed to cut them off at the knees, designed to bully them, and send a message to environmental activists to essentially scare them into submission. Jesse Noakes, a long-time campaigner and journalist, has also received police attention. He filed a story for the Saturday paper about the WA police approach to protesters on Thursday night. He said he was near the site of the Woodville AGM on Friday morning when two officers from the State Security Investigations Group, whose duties typically include counter-terrorism, arrested him on suspicion of offences relating to alleged planned disruption of the AGM. I'm not sure that a protest like that could be deemed terrorism at all. He says he was held for 8 hours and then released without charge, but police still have his phone and laptop and are seeking his passwords to access them. I work with vulnerable communities on sensitive stories about climate, housing, cultural heritage, youth justice, deaths in custody, and health and homelessness, among others. My priority is to protect my sources, so I'm totally unable to give WA Police access to my contacts and confidential material. A WA Police spokesman said they could not comment on individual cases. The WA Police Force recognises the rights of people to protest and will even assist to facilitate safe, peaceful and lawful protests as we have in the past. Now that's quite the interesting little series of events there. But that is the final story of the day. So thank you all for tuning into the first episode of last week's news. This will be done every Tuesday from 3 p.m. onwards. Make sure to follow the stream to stay up to date when I go live. And join the Discord, which you can type in chat !Discord, and it'll send a link to you there. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you Thursday for some GeoGuessr. See ya.